In a home where everything was perfect, one unexpected event turned their lives upside down. Left with nothing but each other, three siblings must find strength, face betrayal, and rise from the ruins. The Madu legacy is a journey of heartbreak, survival, and the unbreakable bond of siblings. The Madu home was like a beautiful painting, calm, colorful, and full of life. Tucked away in one of the finest estates in Lagos, the house stood big and tall with white walls, large windows, and a neat garden filled with flowers that danced in the wind. Everything about the house showed that it belonged to a family that was not only wealthy but also organized and full of love. The compound was always clean, the lawn well trimmed, and the air always smelled of fresh flowers or something delicious cooking in the kitchen. Inside the house, things were even better. The living room was tastefully decorated with leather couches, sparkling chandeliers, and family portraits on the walls. Every piece of furniture had its place, and there was a feeling of peace the moment you walked in. Despite having housemaids, security, and a chef, the home didn't feel stiff or distant. It felt warm because love lived there. Martin's Madu, the first child, was 14 years old, tall, slim, and carried himself with quiet confidence. His light brown skin always looked clean and fresh. His eyes were sharp and serious, like someone who paid attention to everything happening around him. Mirabelle, the second child, was 11. She was bright, outspoken, and sometimes stubborn. Then there was Mitchell, the baby of the house, just 9 years old. She was playful and full of questions, always running around the house. Though Mirabelle and Mitchell were very close, they often argued over small things, like who got to sit beside their mother at breakfast or who would get the last meat pie from the tray. But their fights never lasted more than 10 minutes. They would always hug and laugh like nothing happened. Engineer Charles Madu, their father, was a strong, intelligent man who owned many oil companies across Nigeria. People respected him for his honesty, wisdom, and hard work. Though he was a busy man, he never allowed his job to take away his time from his family. Their mother, Amaka Madu, was a senior matron at a popular hospital in Lagos. She was known for being kind and caring to patients, yet strict and organized at home. Even though they had chefs and house helps, she always made sure her children took part in the house chores. She was always there for her kids. On weekends, when she was off duty, she would cook and spend the day with her family. Every Saturday was special in the Madu's household. Even with all the wealth and workers around, Amaka always woke up early to make breakfast for the family. On one particular Saturday, the sun had barely risen when Amaka walked into the kitchen in her flowery nightgown. Chef Vivian, the family's longtime chef, greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, madam," she said. "Good morning, Vivian. Today is for my family," Amaka said cheerfully. While Vivian stood by to assist her, Amaka made pancakes, fried eggs, sausages, and even baked a quick batch of her children's favorite chocolate muffins. The smell filled the house, and soon the children were at the table waiting with excitement. Charles came down with the morning newspaper in one hand and his glasses perched on his nose. He smiled as he saw his family already seated. "Good morning, my stars," he said, kissing his wife on the cheek and his children on their forehead. They all sat together, ate, laughed, and talked about their week. It was their tradition. But they didn't know that soon, everything would change. It was a normal Wednesday afternoon when Charles returned home with his wife, looking serious but calm. After dinner, they called the children into the living room. Charles cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and I have to attend a very important summit out of town together. It came up suddenly and we have to travel tomorrow morning." The children looked surprised. "Tomorrow?" Martins asked. "Yes, son. It's urgent," Amaka added gently. "We'll only be gone for a few days. We'll be back by Saturday before dinner, I promise." Charles turned to Martins. "You will be the man of the house while we are away, my boy. Watch over your sisters and make sure they're safe. Chef Vivian and the others will assist you." Martins nodded, though he felt nervous inside. The next morning, Mr. and Mrs. Madu left in a black SUV. Martins and the girls waved at them standing at the front door until their SUV disappeared. That day was quiet. The children were on mid-term break, so there was no school. Martins helped the girls with their mid-term project and made sure they were safe and well-fed. But by evening things began to feel strange. There was no phone call, no text, nothing from their parents. That was unlike them. Martins tried calling, but both phones were switched off. Maybe their phones died, he thought. Just after 8 p.m., Martin's phone rang. The call was from an unknown number. He answered quickly. "Hello. Is this the son of Mr. Charles Madu?" a man asked on the other end. "Yes. Who is this?" There was a short silence before the man said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, but your parents were involved in a terrible accident this afternoon. They didn't survive." Martins froze. The phone dropped from his hands. Mirabel and Mitchell rushed to him. "What happened?" they asked, but he couldn't speak. He simply stared at the floor, tears forming in his eyes. Later that night, the news flashed across every channel. Top oil executive and hospital matron dies in a tragic accident. The next few days were a blur. People came to mourn. Flowers filled the house. Friends, workers, and strangers offered their condolences. The children sat quietly, barely speaking. At the funeral, Martins and the girls stood beside their parents' caskets. Mirabel held Mitchell, who kept crying softly. After the burial, while all the visitors had all gone, 3 people walked into the compound. It was Uncle Ease, Uncle Victor, and Auntie Ifioma, Charles's siblings. They didn't hug the children or comfort them. They whispered among themselves and scanned the house like they were inspecting a listed property. 2 days later, they returned. Uncle Ease spoke first. "You children can no longer stay here. This house and everything in it belongs to the Madu family now." Martins looked up, confused. "But this is our home." Uncle Victor folded his arms. "Not anymore. Your father didn't leave any will. So tradition says the elders take charge." Martins stood up. "That can't be true. Everything here was built for us. My father would never." Auntie Ifioma interrupted harshly. "Shut your mouth. Don't talk back at your elders." Tears welled up in Mirabel's eyes. Mitchell clung to her side. Uncle Victor went inside and returned with a small bag he handed over to Martins. "Take this. You all must leave now," Uncle Ease said firmly. Martins begged. Mirabel knelt and cried. But the uncles wouldn't listen. With no one else to turn to, the children were pushed out through the same gate they had once walked through with excitement. Their hearts shattered as they stepped into the street, unsure of where to go. The streets of Lagos was loud during the day but unforgiving at night. For children who once had everything, the cold ground, empty stomachs, and fear of the unknown were more than they could bear. That first night, they found shelter in an uncompleted building far from their estate. With no doors or windows, mosquitoes buzzed and bit their skin until they cried in their sleep. Martins tried to be brave. He gave his jacket to Mitchell and held his sisters close, whispering, "We'll be okay." But he was not sure. For the next few days, they walked the streets, looking for help or shelter. People passed them by. Some gave a little change. Some insulted them. One night, rain fell heavily. The roof of the building they were sleeping in had holes. Water poured in. Their clothes were soaked. Mitchell began coughing. By the 4th day, her body was hot with fever. She cried all night. Mirabel wept silently, holding her hand. Martins left early in the morning to beg for work. He washed car windows, helped an orange seller push his cart, and fetched water just to buy some medicine and bread. One afternoon, while standing by a busy road, a familiar voice called out, "Martins!" He turned around. It was Chef Vivian. She dropped the basket she was carrying and ran to him. "What happened to you? Where are your sisters?" Tears rushed down his face as he told her everything. Her hands trembled as she listened. "They chased you out?" "God in heaven," she said, wiping her eyes. Vivian and the other staff had been displaced from work by their uncles immediately after their father's death. "I've been struggling, Ma," Martin said. "Mitchell is very sick." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she took a deep breath. "I may not have much, but your mother was good to me. You can come stay with me and my children. We will manage together." That evening, Martins took his sisters to Chef Vivian's small apartment. It was nothing like their former home. The walls were peeling, the roof leaked, and they all shared one mat. But it was the first time in days they felt safe. Life under Vivian's roof was not easy, but it was a gift that the Madu children never took for granted. Even though her room was small and barely had enough space for her own children, she welcomed Martins, Mirabelle, and Mitchell like they were her own. Her home was poor, with a local bed and one old mat shared between 6 children. Yet, it was filled with peace, love, and care, something the children had not felt since their parents died. Martins, being the oldest, felt a deep sense of responsibility. Though he was just a teenager, he knew he had to step up. He watched Vivian struggle daily to provide for everyone and decided it was time to work and support his sisters. He started out doing menial jobs, carrying loads, cleaning stores, and running errands. After weeks of saving the little he earned, he used the money to buy a cooler and began selling cold pure water on the streets and in traffic. Soon after, he encouraged Mirabelle to join him. She sold biscuits and groundnuts, walking under the hot sun every day with a tray on her head. It was hard and painful, but they did it with courage because they had no choice. With time, their efforts paid off. They saved enough to rent a tiny one-room apartment in a rough but safe neighborhood. It was nothing compared to the luxury they once lived in, but it was theirs. The siblings cleaned it, painted the walls, and laid down the mat they slept on. That small room gave them a fresh start. Later, Martins enrolled Mirabelle and Mitchell in a nearby government school. He used his earnings from hawking to buy uniforms, notebooks, and biros. The girls were happy to return to school. They promised to work hard and make their brother proud. And they did. Years passed. Mirabelle and Mitchell didn't just finish secondary school. They went ahead to university. Mirabelle was serious with her books. She studied medicine and graduated with excellent grades. Her dream was to help people in poor communities, especially children who couldn't afford to go to hospitals like Mitchell once couldn't. She eventually became a successful medical doctor, working at a respected hospital. She also led medical outreaches offering free treatment in villages and rural areas. People loved her for her kindness and passion. Mitchell, on the other hand, chased her dream in engineering. She had always loved buildings and design. After years of focus and hard work, she graduated with good grades and joined a top construction firm. Her designs became popular, and before long, Mitchell was one of the most sought-after engineers in the city. She worked on big projects, hotels, bridges, schools, and always told her clients, "My father was an engineer. I'm just walking in his footsteps." Martins watched his sisters grow and succeed, and he felt nothing but pride. He remembered their darkest days, the hunger, the nights on the street, the tears, the rejection. But now, those days were behind them. As for Martins, he didn't stop at street hustling. His pure water business grew step by step. He moved from selling in a cooler to buying a freezer. Then he began producing his own branded pure water in small quantities. Later, he bought machines to seal and package the water properly. He rented a small space and turned it into a mini factory. Customers loved the quality of his water. Slowly, Martins became a known name in the area. He employed workers, bought delivery bikes, and supplied water to shops, supermarkets, and events. But Martins knew that experience alone wasn't enough to manage a growing business. He needed education. So, he took the bold step and returned to school. He enrolled in a university as a part-time student, studying business management. During the week, he oversaw the factory and ran the business. On weekends, he attended classes and did his assignments. It was tough balancing work and school, but Martins was determined. He had sacrificed everything for his sisters and now, he was building a better future for himself too. Even with their different careers, the 3 siblings remained close. They kept their Saturday tradition alive. Every weekend, no matter how busy they were, they came together to eat, laugh, share stories, and support one another. One Saturday afternoon, they sat in Martin's modest living room, eating rice and plantain. Mirabelle spoke first. "There was this little girl at the hospital today," she said. "She was very sick but smiled at me like she had no worry in the world. It reminded me of Mitchell." Mitchell laughed. "Me. I used to cry every day when I was sick." You still cry, Mirabel teased. Martin smiled and looked at them both. I'm proud of you girls. You made it. Mirabel looked at him. We made it because you believed in us when nobody else did. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he quickly wiped them. We're not done yet. We've come a long way, but the journey is still far. And he was right. One Saturday, the air was calm. Martins had just returned from his business rounds and was checking through his phone when an unknown number flashed on the screen. At first, he ignored it, but it rang again. Curious, he picked up. Hello, he said. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Martins. Is this Martins Madu? His body tensed. The voice was weak and shaky. Yes, it's me. Who is this? Martins asked, now more alert. It's Uncle Ease. Martins sat up immediately. His heart raced. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. The last time he saw Uncle Ease was the day he had thrown him and his sisters out of their father's house, heartlessly. It had been years, but the memory was still fresh like a wound that never fully healed. I've been trying to reach you, Ease said. Please. I need to see you. Martin stayed quiet. I know I don't deserve it, Ease continued. But please. I have something to say. That evening, Martins told Mirabel and Mitchell about the call. They were surprised. It was a name they had all pushed to the back of their minds, a shadow from the past they had tried to forget. What does he want now? Mitchell asked, clearly annoyed. He didn't say much, Martins replied. But I think we should see him. Mirabel nodded slowly. We've come a long way. Maybe this is a part of the journey too. The next morning, they prepared and went to the address he gave them. It was a small, broken-down building on the edge of a rough neighborhood. The walls were cracked. The compound was overgrown with grass. It was hard to believe that someone like Uncle Ease was living here. They knocked gently. A young boy opened the door and let them in. There, on an old mattress in the corner of the room, lay Uncle Ease. He was no longer the proud, well-dressed man they remembered. His clothes were worn out. His cheeks were sunken. His hair was mostly gray. He looked sick, tired, and broken. As soon as he saw them, tears rushed to his eyes. Martins. Mirabel. Mitchell. He whispered with a shaky voice. You came. None of them spoke. They just stared at the man who had once stripped them of their home and left them to suffer. I don't even know where to begin, he said, struggling to sit up. Everything I did. It was wrong. He coughed deeply, then continued. After your parents died, I thought I was doing what was right for the family. I thought their wealth should return to us. I was proud. Greedy. And God dealt with me. He sighed and looked down at his trembling hands. I made some bad investments. I lost everything. Cars, houses, and so on. I tried to borrow to recover, but I was duped. Now, I have nothing. Not even food to eat. The siblings stood in silence, watching and listening. Their minds were filled with memories. Bitter, painful memories. But Uncle Ease wasn't done. Victor is not better off, he said with a weak smile. He was tricked in a business deal and lost all his money. His wife left him. He's living with a friend now. Completely dependent. He paused again. And Ifioma, she had a stroke. She's bedridden and alone. None of her children came back to her. They say she's paying for her wickedness. There was another long silence. I've been cursed with regrets, he said softly. I've not known peace since that day I pushed you out. I can still see your faces, begging me not to lock the gate. And now, I live with those images. Every night. The room was quiet except for the hum of a nearby fan. Ease lifted his head slowly and said, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Deeply sorry. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Martins clenched his fists. His mind was full of questions. Why now? Why didn't they think of their late brother's children when they needed help the most? But he said nothing. Mirabel looked away, wiping a tear that escaped. Mitchell stared hard at the ground. The man before them was no longer a threat. He was no longer the monster they remembered. He was now a shadow of himself, a man beaten by the same world he once controlled. What they felt in that moment wasn't just anger or sadness. It was something deeper. Pain mixed with pity. Memories wrapped in silence. Unfinished emotions. The three siblings stood for a while, then quietly turned toward the door. Uncle Ease didn't stop them. He simply laid back down and watched them walk away. Weeks had passed since the siblings visited their Uncle Ease. Life continued as usual. Martins was busy running his factory and attending part-time lectures. Mirabelle was working long hours at the hospital, and Mitchell was managing several engineering projects. They didn't speak much about the visit, but the image of their broken uncle stayed quietly in their minds. One Thursday afternoon, as Martins was going through some business documents in his office, a young man walked in. He looked formal and respectful. "Good afternoon, sir," he greeted. "Good afternoon," Martins replied, looking up. "I was asked to deliver this to you directly," the young man said, handing him a brown envelope with an old stamped seal. "It's from Mr. Adeyemi, the lawyer who used to represent your father." Martins looked at the envelope. His heart skipped. "You may go." "Thank you," he said. After the man left, Martins slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a thick bundle of legal documents. He picked up the letter first. The words were written in neat cursive, but the tone was heavy and emotional. "Dear Martins Madu, I write this letter to you with a heart full of guilt and regret. I was your father's lawyer for many years. After the passing of your parents, I was entrusted with an important duty, protecting and executing their will in favor of you and your sisters. But I failed you. In my weakness, I allowed myself to be persuaded by your uncles. They convinced me that you children were too young to handle such wealth and that the properties should be managed by them. I closed my eyes to the truth. I watched silently as you were pushed out of your home and left to suffer. And for this, I am truly sorry. You may wonder why I am speaking up now. The answer is simple. Karma. 2 years ago, my 2 sons were coming to visit me from school. Their car was involved in a terrible accident. I lost my only children on the same day. I cried to God for answers. And over time, I understood. This was my punishment. I helped evil win, and I lost the dearest thing to me as a result. I have carried this burden for too long. Please find attached your father's original will and a list of all the remaining properties and assets that legally belong to you and your sisters. I do not ask for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve any. With deep regret, Barrister Adeyemi A. Martins could hardly breathe. He dropped the letter and leaned back in his chair. His eyes burned with emotion. He quickly called Mirabelle and Mitchell. "Please come to the house tonight. It's important," he said. That evening, the 3 siblings sat together in the living room. Martins read the letter out loud slowly. When he finished, the room fell silent. Mirabelle wiped her eyes. So, all this time, all this pain, could have been avoided? Mitchell looked at the documents. "And this is Dad's will?" "It was hidden." Martins nodded. "Yes. But now it's in our hands." They opened the second envelope. Inside were neatly arranged documents with official seals. The content shocked them. Their father had left them everything. Multiple properties, shares in oil companies, large savings, and full ownership of his businesses. It was more than they ever imagined. For a while, nobody said anything. Then Martins spoke. "You both know how we grew up. We've lived without these things for years. And we've built our lives from nothing." Mirabelle nodded. "Yes. We don't need this wealth to prove anything. But maybe we can use it for something bigger than us." Mitchell leaned forward. "Let's give half to charity. Let's help other children like us, those who've been abandoned, orphaned, or forgotten." Martins smiled gently. "Yes. We'll open a foundation. A place where kids can eat, sleep, go to school, and follow their dreams." And so, the Charles and Amaka Foundation was born. They registered it officially with the Corporate Affairs Commission. The vision was clear, to honor their parents' memory by helping children who were once like them, homeless, hopeless, and hungry. The foundation began with a few staff members and some volunteers. The Madu's siblings poured their hearts into it. Mirabelle headed the healthcare outreach, organizing free medical checkups and treatments for street children and the poor. Mitchell led the infrastructure unit, designing and supervising the construction of proper hostels, classrooms, and vocational training centers. Martins took care of the administration and funding, managing donations, training programs, and overseeing the staff and budgets. They also offered scholarships to bright children with struggling parents, giving them a chance to dream big. On the day of their first official outreach, over 100 children gathered in the open hall. Some were dirty, barefoot, and scared. Others were hungry, just like they had once been. Martin stepped onto the small stage and looked at the children. He remembered the first night he slept on the cold floor of an uncompleted building, holding his sisters close while mosquitoes bit them and the rain soaked their only clothes. He cleared his throat and spoke slowly. "Many of you don't know us. But we know you, because we were once like you. We lost our parents suddenly. We were chased from our home. We slept outside, begged for food, and had no one to turn to. Some children looked up curiously. But we didn't give up. We worked hard. We cried, prayed, and held on to each other. And now, we are here to tell you that your story doesn't have to end in pain." The crowd was quiet. "You are not alone anymore. This place is your home now. This is your second chance." The children clapped, and some wept. The staff handed out food, clothes, and school supplies. As Martins looked around the room, he felt something in his heart shift. It wasn't sadness or anger anymore. It was peace. They had been through betrayal, hunger, rejection, and deep pain. But in the end, they had chosen love over hatred, hope over revenge, and purpose over pride. And that was the greatest legacy of all. Thank you for watching this video. What lessons did you learn from this story? We would love to hear your thought in the comments section. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Also ensure to subscribe if you have not done so already. Turn on the notification bell so as to get notified whenever we post a new video. Until we come your way again, for now it's bye.